Will the organizer of the second coming please make sure the skeletons stay clear of the car? Oh, sorry. 6 feet. Under. Let me just roll out and put myself together. There. Are we all sitting comfortably? All bones connected properly?
Good. Then I can begin. Hello, all you believers out there. It's me again, God's best friend. And today, I'm in a slightly somber mood. You see, I've been to a funeral today. Usually, when a believer goes into the ground, we are all a little sad, but really, he is going to a better place, so we're quite happy for him. He wears his best suit, the one we will see him in when we meet next. In the meantime, he can check out stuff like the best cloud and angel services, so as to make our own landing a little smoother. But today was a different case. The deceased was a non-believer. I took it upon myself to fix this unfortunate situation, whether he liked it or not. I locked the doctors and nurses out and tried all day to convert him before his death, but he couldn't find it in himself to believe. When he died, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was somehow my fault. Not that he died, that's okay. But here he was, all dressed up, and nowhere to go. They say, metaphorically of course, that every man is a whole world. When any of you believers is dead, your metaphorical world lives on. But in this case, forgive me if I confess to you that I felt as if I could have saved the world, but failed so to do. But enough self-pity. We are here to do good. That's me, not you, Satan's delivery boy. Please be quiet. When I want your opinion, I will ask for it. Today, I'd like to address the question of universe fine-tuning. Sorry? Am I boring you? Well, you're free to go elsewhere. Speaking of which, well, I wasn't going to speak about freedom, but since you brought it up, well, let's just say it is overrated. As I was saying, you are free to disagree. No, by all means. Feel free to. You are free to leave, but then I will have to kill you. Your Chihuahua dog, oh, you will. Trust me on this. Is free to shit on the carpet, but then you'll wrap it in that very same carpet. Your wife, I presume you have a few, is free to say, I have a headache, and lose that very head. And speaking of the headless, a chicken is free to. You see where I'm going here? Freedom can be tempting, but like wives in a cave or dinosaurs on an ark, there is a limit as to how many. Look, you see this here goldfish? You see how happily swim in perfect circles? You think it would be good to set him free in the ocean with all those? Well, I, for one, beg to differ. No, by all means, ask him if he wants freedom. You don't speak goldfish. How convenient. Well, if you want my opinion about how free we should be, I would say as free as a knife. Exactly. You can be fairly sure that the knife you're holding is not going to turn around and... Okay, feel free to correct me or point at my midriff, but don't complain. A bulge in my pocket. You are right. Do I have an opinion in my pocket or am I happy to see God? Now don't be silly. Have you seen God lately? Neither have I. It's an opinion, of course. About freedom, no less. What are the odds? Right. Freedom. As of the opening of this envelope, I am free, indeed obliged, to hold, indeed express, any opinion that comes. There must be a typo here. Second part. Oh, yes, so there is. Effective immediately, I am willing, indeed happy, to defend, indeed die, for your right to hold, indeed express this opinion, which is obviously in need of some serious fine. Please, I know you like our friendship to continue uninterrupted. Do you think I enjoy disposing of all those badly designed souls? This opinion needs fine-tuning, which, funnily enough, is the subject of today's talk. As you know, fine-tuning is a very delicate task. When we say something is fine-tuned, we say that someone, a god possibly, or perhaps a plumber, has spent endless time on every little detail, incrementally making it better and better. Take the perfection of the human race. God has made the human race and fine-tuned it, one tiny delicate step after the other until he arrived at the perfect result which we so clearly are today. For example, one of those tiny delicate steps was the flood. But let's not jump the gun, ladies and gentlemen. Let's start at the beginning. Oh, before the beginning, let me offer an apology to the elderly amongst us. Please raise your hand if you are 30 or over. Not too many, thank God. Dear seniors, please accept my apology. I seem to have hinted in the last chapter that you should enjoy life, sex, and driving. The fact is that you occupy precious caves which the young and the animals could benefit from. If I gave you the impression that your company and wisdom are of any value, I'm sorry. Please make sure at the end of the lecture to go to the nearest graveyard where you will be most welcome. Early to grave, early to rise, as they say. With that out of the way, let's deal with the beginning and the creator of the universe, who, incidentally, is my best friend. Now, perhaps you are not aware of my famous humility. That's okay. If you weren't aware of it, you are now. I'm not one to blow my own universe, but someone else clearly is, or was. His name, you'll be surprised to know, is God, although if you want to call him Father Nature or words to that effect, you might just get away with it. I wouldn't, on the other hand, if I were you, call him the old banger. Yes, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to take you to the beginning. Good old Big Bang. To those of you who so far managed to evade the Big Bang Theory and didn't quite get the first chapter of the Bible, let me start by explaining what the Big Bang is not. 1. When you bang the top of your TV set, this is not a big bang. 2. When you enthusiastically educate your young, which might, by the way, describe a few of your wives, this is a bigger bang, but still not a big one. 3. Reversing your old banger into your neighbor's donkey doesn't qualify either. All those are bangs, alright? But not particularly big. Now, a bigger bang, such as the one you might produce by flying an airplane into a building, sorry? Yes, it's one way of defending God. I myself prefer a debate on park bench, but that's me. I'll get to the point if you stop heckling me. Dr. Hovin. Well, he is otherwise on YouTube, destroying 322 scientists as we speak. So, I'm the best you've got. Eric Hovin. He's home alone, taking care of business and the dinosaurs, while his dad is out destroying science. You want help, you talk to me. As I was saying, the Big Bang was big. How big? Well, try to compare a thunderstorm to a fart. I know some of you can fart rather loudly, but I'm yet to see a fart that makes cows fly, or even pigs. There is another difference between those bangs I mentioned earlier and the big one, and it's this. Those aforementioned bangs are what we call destructive. The Big Bang, on the other hand, was constructive, or what we call in creation science reverse engineering. If you hold your donkeys, we shall discuss reverse engineering at some length in later talk, but until then, let's just say that when you bang your wife, for example, the result is the destruction of any superfluous thought she might have, which is, of course, the desired result. Indeed, when you fly into a building, that building isn't going to reassemble itself. And the same goes for the airplane. And you, of course. Nobody and nothing can reassemble itself unless God tells him to, which, let's face it, he isn't likely to. You might want to consult the previous chapter which explained God's implementation of the second law of thermodynamics before you read on, but believe me, entropy is a one-way street. Mostly on second thought, if you defend God by flying into a building, God might express his gratitude by reconstructing you in some future coming, but don't blame him if he starts his coming with the more coherent skeletons, those who wait patiently in proper graves. If you ask yourself why I tend not to fly into buildings, perhaps this is a good answer. So, back to the beginning. In the beginning, there was nothing, and then, for no apparent reason, God, with a big bang, created the universe. Now, as you should already know, I'm not one to tell others, God included, how to do stuff. However, if it was down to me to create the universe, I would have done it in a more thoughtful and peaceful manner. You don't want to wake a neighborhood up in some ungodly hour on a Sunday just because you want to build another universe without permit. Still, you don't get to be an almighty God by being a good neighbor. So now you know the Big Bang Theory. See, it's not rocket surgery, if you think about it logically, and not brain science either. I'm sorry. SDB, I told you to speak only when spoken to. He used his hand, of course. How else do you create stuff? Dice? I'm sorry, God doesn't do that. Oh, no, he doesn't. Have you heard of Albert Einstein? Well then, God doesn't play dice. He plans everything carefully, and then, before he... Yes, he did create time before. How do I know? I'm a believer, that's how. You see, like everything else in science, we believers knew about the Big Bang all along, but we didn't want to force it down your throat. We gave you time to get there. It took you 3,000 years, but eventually you looked up into the heavens. I believe it was a Mr. Hubble, and you came to the right conclusion yourself. You look north, you see galaxies running north. You look south, you see galaxies running south. You look up, you see galaxies stampeding up. You look down, you see no galaxies, of course, only the good old Earth, on which we firmly stand. The farther you look, the faster those galaxies run. Some run so fast, even light can't keep up with them. Those are the lucky ones. But why? Why are they escaping from us? Have we done anything to insult them? Did we threaten them? Have we got bad breath? The answer is yes to all of the above, but it's not us, it's God. He blew them to the four corners so he could concentrate on the only thing that really matters, Earth and the humans on it. Is it a coincidence that aliens avoid our planets like the plague? I rest my case. Now, the humans on it, what's not to understand here? Oh, good point. We're talking about we're the humans, of course. There are many humans who, no names, are no more than slightly improved apes who stumble upon nonsense such as relativity and rubbish like that. Calling them humans would be a bit of a stretch. Let's just say that God concentrates only on those who bother praying to him. Does that answer your concern? Good. Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'll be the first to admit that I don't know what God looks like. But I'll tell you this for nothing. I know what some humans look like. So, as he created man in his own image, if I were a galaxy, I wouldn't wait for God to zero on me. If you're a smart galaxy, you run. Okay, of course there might be the odd galaxy, the small Magellanic Cloud comes to mind, which might turn to God and say, "Why are you calling chicken?" But, in general, galaxies know what's good for them, and good riddance to them. So, what those competing galaxies are showing you
is an expanding universe, folks.
in other words, a big bang, exactly as predicted in the book of Genesis. All those galaxies are running away like headless chicken from, that's right folks, from planet Earth. You see, girls and boys, the center of the universe is none other than Pensacola, Florida, home of the Reverend Dr. Ken Hovind and God's headquarters. I've got to tell you this, folks. Just the other day, I had a debate on this very point with my colleague, Satan's delivery boy. His point was, and please don't... GBF, he said, I'm not kidding you, the center of the universe is everywhere. He said that, I promise you. And then he said something along the lines of, if I go a billion light years this way or that, the galaxies will still be running away from me, not from planet Earth. Well, you can guess what I told him, but I'll tell you anyway. I said, sorry SDB, but how do you know that? Have you actually been there? Now, instead of answering with a coherent sentence, I'm kidding you not, SDB produced a designer condom with tiny galaxies printed on it and said, I was born because of one of those condoms, by the way, but that's beside the point. The point is, watch those tiny galaxies running away from each other as I blow this universe. I didn't have to tell him that this was just another proof that God sits at the center of the universe and, by way of the ultimate blowjob, frightened the rest of the universe away, thus expanding it. What I did tell him was, SDB, I'll make a deal with you. You're welcome to travel a billion light years at the speed of light, and when you reach your destination, please send me a photograph of all those chicken galaxies running away from you. Until I get that photograph, let me check my calendar, in 2 billion years, give or take 2,000 years, the center of the universe is Dinoland, Pensacola, Florida. Now, let me get on with the argument. Oh, I can see you scratching your heads, asking yourselves, dinosaurs? In 2015? In Florida? Well, you might be interested to know that the aforementioned Dr. Kent Hovind did prove beyond any doubt that the dinosaurs didn't die as a result of an asteroid. They were slain by the likes of St. George. Some of them still walk the earth, but they don't advertise now. Back to the universe. Pensacola, Florida. Dinoland, yes. But I'm talking about the universe now, if you don't mind. Dinosaurs are part of it, indeed, an important part. But let's concentrate on the universe as a whole, if it's all the same to you. Thank you very much. If you look at the laws of nature, you ask yourself, why is gravity what it is? It could have been a bit stronger or a little weaker. It could have had 1 and 8 trillion zeros different values, but God chose the exact values, which allows matter to form and create stars, rocks, and life. What are the odds? The same goes for the strong nuclear force. Could anyone but a creator create a force that attracts at a distance of exactly 1 Planck unit and no more? And the Planck unit could have been bigger or smaller by any value, 1 with a trillion zeros of possibilities, but God fixed it right just so. 1 Planck unit fits exactly with a strong force. If that's not a cosmic coincidence, I don't know what a cosmic coincidence is. I could go on with about at least 200 laws and values, which could have been different but aren't. The chances of the universe being what it is, full of life and asking questions about it, are 1 with a trillion zeros times 1 with a trillion zeros, and repeat the process 200 times, and then add 42. In short, clearly, science supports a fine-tuned universe. Let me repeat so there's no misunderstanding when God asks you about the subject. The universe was created by the hand of God, and the hand of God fine-tuned the universe. And as Einstein once said, he didn't play dice. At least not while he was fine-tuning the universe. What God did with his hand on his day off is his own business. Now, when I present this argument to SDB, you know what he said? Don't laugh. He said, what about all those running away galaxies? Didn't it take them a little more than 6,000 years to be where they are now? That idiot assumes those galaxies are running away from us. Have you ever seen a galaxy running? Last time I looked, all the galaxies were exactly where I saw them a week earlier. I'm sorry, folks. The Big Bang theory fits with creation. If you need running away galaxies to believe in the Big Bang theory, that's your problem. Now that we have dealt with the 200 or so basic physics laws and constants, there are at least 17 trillion local parameters which could have impeded the emergence of humans. What are they? Do you want me to quote all I had other plans, such as finding a job, or perhaps a wife, or three. Okay, I'll give you two of them if you promise not to heckle me further. One, God could have filled the world's oceans with Diet Coke, but he had a vision not to. Two, one, yes, good point. Other soft drinks are available. God could have filled the oceans with classic Coke as well, and he avoided that temptation too. Two, the case of the headache. The headache? Come on. Surely you've learned about the female primate from which we all. Anyway, she had a headache, but God cured it just in time for. You get the idea. You don't. Okay, one more thing, which luckily didn't happen. The Earth could have been a flying teapot, just like the one atheists believe is circling Jupiter as we speak. No, there isn't, to the best of my belief, a teapot orbiting Jupiter, but God was tempted to put one in orbit. Trust me on this. Okay? Are we all on the same page? So, there are 16,999,999,999,997 more things that could have prevented us humans from sitting here tonight talking about the odds of us humans sitting here tonight talking about, oh, speaking of women and headaches, if you want to know the origin of love, yes, good question. Love is quite a funny thing. Some say God is a loving, indeed a lovable being. I wouldn't go as far as that. If I were you, I would restrict my loving to the confines of my cave, but that's me. If you want to spend the love God gave you on Him, that's okay with me. But as a proud owner of quite a few wives, as I'm sure you are, I would advise you to preserve as much of it as you can. Still, you should know how love popped into being in the first place. To that end, you want to inspect day 6 of the creation, just minutes before God decided to take the famous breather. Of course, he created love, so his creations would know what to feel if they saw him, but something went wrong. Yes, SDB, I'm looking at you and your employer. Anyway, you can multiply the above odds 17 trillion times further, and don't forget to add another 42 to the number. I leave it to you to calculate the odds against a universe in which humans can ask questions about the universe. When I say the universe is fine-tuned, I mean fine-tuned. This baby is a creation, and that creation is fine-tuned exclusively for the existence of the human race, the only race God can have a conversation with. And when God heard the first prayer, that's when he was satisfied his work was done. The ultimate hand job. I'm not one for blowing my own job, but God clearly is. Or was. To summarize, God's hand created the universe exclusively for us humans. He could have created it for dogs, he could have created it for women, but he created it for man. Like I said in the last chapter, woman was created to fit man. If God could have avoided women, believe me, he would. Exactly. If you were God, would you personally give birth to every man you required? Of course you would subcontract the job to. Oh, that's a very good question. Well, you could argue that you don't need 100 dogs to catch a tiny fox. You could argue that you don't need 6 wives to make sure. You could argue that you don't need 250 million sperms to. Exactly. You could argue that God didn't need to create 420 billion galaxies to accommodate us, but it's always a good idea to have a little extra just in case. You'd think that would be the end of the debate, but guess what Satan's delivery boy came up with next? Please don't laugh, he said. It's obvious the universe was created and fine-tuned, but it was created and fine-tuned for chickens. There are more chickens in the world than humans, hence it was fine-tuned for chickens. Now, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, how stupid is that theory? Between us and the chicken, who eats whom? That's point number 1. Point number 2, imagine a chicken in the middle of a room full of humans. Do the humans run away from the chicken in all directions like headless galaxies? I rest my case. I'll have to say that for SDB. You have to admire him. He never knows when he's beaten. I can see a universe where chickens rule the earth and the humans worship them. There are many possible universes, and you know, GBF, all those universes exist. A big number with many zeros, but I like the one with the chickens on top. It exists. No shit, Sherlock, I said with mock astonishment. But for me to believe that, you'll have to show me that universe with those chickens ruling the earth and humans worshipping them. Or else, I might get a little skeptical. So I like skeptics, he said. That's why we're such good friends. Well, I said, friendship or no friendship, I'm happy with the one perfectly fine-tuned universe we both are inhabiting, thank you. SDB looked at me and didn't say a word. It's all God's work, I concluded. Those eggs didn't lay themselves, His mind was making funny noises. And those chickens didn't. It was God. He who must be. I was about to wave him goodbye, and he was halfway gone, but then, do you remember Detective Colombo? He said, just one more thing. What is it, SDB? It's getting a little late. You might remember, back in Chapter 1, All Creators, that my debates with Satan's delivery boy tend to twist and turn quite dangerously. You think the debate is over, and even a passing Chihuahua dog can't falsify my arguments, but then shit happens. You see, everything you see around you has a cause. Now, boys and girls, let me give you a friendly piece of advice. If you value your life, I suggest you concentrate. Please don't give me that. It's very simple. Even my here goldfish gets it every 10 seconds. Please concentrate now. If you don't, it will cause. Exactly. If you're stupid, that's because you didn't listen to me. If I kill you, that's because you're stupid. If you don't listen to me, that's because I killed you. You see where I'm going here? If you understand the principles of cause and effect, life becomes much simpler. The universe exists, something must have caused it, therefore, God exists. A pile of dog shit exists, something must have caused it, therefore, dog exists. What's not to understand? Sometimes I despair when non-believers ignore the laws of logic, which God has worked so long and hard to create for them. No wonder the last thing I wanted to hear was just one more thing. I'm sorry, SDB. You've never seen God barking happily and chasing his own tail? What kind of an argument is that? Oh, I see. Please concentrate and follow my, or rather, God's logic. You can't see God because he happens to be outside the universe he created. If you were inside a pile of dog shit, would you be able to see the dog? Of course you wouldn't. Now, please be quiet and let me tell this here good folk about our debate. Thank you. As I was trying to say before I was again rudely interrupted, SDB seemed to agree with my arguments and was on his hopefully straight and narrow way, but then he said, just one more thing. What is it, SDB? I said. It's getting a little late. Well, he said, I'll concede there's only one universe, and I'll concede it is perfectly fine-tuned. Good, I said. Another converted soul. Way to go! There aren't many better feelings than the one you get when you profoundly converted a hardcore non-believer. And then he said for me, pardon, I said, me? The universe was amazingly and exclusively fine-tuned for me. It was perfectly fine-tuned for my existence. You see, if my sperm finished second in the egg race, I didn't like the picture Satan's delivery boy was painting. There were children listening, GBF? There were 250 million sperms competing. That's too much, I thought. But if the number was right, we're talking bad design here. 250 million sperms competing for that one egg every time I died. I didn't really want to get into those details. I was much more likely to end up in, when SDB is on a roll, it's hard to stop him, as it must have been the case with his father, might end up in a condom or SDB. Children are listening. Good, said SDB. They need to know what happened when a condom malfunctions. I was getting a little confused now. I wasn't concerned about the children. They can manage. It's the universe I was worried about. It was floating like a peanut in a multiverse. What are the odds for a simple sperm like half of me to actually win the egg race? Said SDB. And I must tell you, that was not the only race, and not the only egg. I get the picture. When I say I was the chosen one, SDB took a calculator out, I mean 1 in 42 trillions, give or take a couple of nights when my dad was drunk, and please. I couldn't take it anymore. The thought of 42 trillions lost sperms, all dressed up, with nowhere to go, was very distressing. We don't need all those details. God is in the details, said SDB. I looked at many details over the years, and never so good. And what are the odds for my dad's existence, and my mum's, and the postman's, and the postman's mum, who was quite friendly? When I think about it, I am on top of a pyramid, and everyone, starting with my dad or the postman, was put there especially for me to be on top, eye to eye, with God. God was facing amazingly long odds, but he was determined to create me. I find it very touching. All I could do was nod. There is no end to what God can do when he sets his mind to something. He even made sure that the only faulty condom of a 6 billion batch, I was only beginning to see the amazing odds God was fighting to create my friend SDB. I'm not one to blow my condom, but thanks to God's amazing powers, SDB didn't have to escape his own condom. God took care of everything and didn't even get a thank you note for his trouble. And the odd gets exponentially longer. There aren't enough zeros in the universe to express them. Was it the postman's mum's plumber? And shall I go back 6,000 years to Eve or 3.6 billion years to the soup? I had to admit that either way, the odds for SDB's existence were rather low. You see, GBF, if I was a believer, I would say I was rather lucky to be here. I had to agree. I was thinking about the trillions and trillions of sperms that sacrificed themselves for me. I felt rather humbled. An asteroid had fallen down and wiped out all life on Earth, but I had bigger things to worry about. So I don't know about you, he said, but on evidence, the universe was created and fine-tuned for me. I was about to come to a slightly different conclusion, namely that the universe was created and fine-tuned for me, but I perished the thought just in time. You see, GBF, said Satan's delivery boy, if my sperm came second in the egg race, the universe
Wouldn't exist now.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please pay close attention. You might be tempted to breathe a big sigh of relief and thank God for creating Satan's delivery boy and hence the universe, but yes, SDB, I get it. Something in my pocket. An opinion. Oh, what then? Okay, you can describe it as an opinion, but it's more like a point of law. It says here that as of this minute, nature's laws are to be controlled by man. For example, me? Are you sure about that? Okay, I'll read on. If I see the universe acting funnily, for example, apples hopping from the ground onto trees and humans hopping from their graves onto clouds, I'll have to change the laws myself. As for God, I'll have to inform him gently so as to not hurt his feelings about the change. Oh, it says here that the best way to do so is to convince God that it was his idea in the first place. Not easy, but doable. Right. I'll deal with that later. It sounds stupid to me, but please feel free to believe it. Oh, if you need help with your belief, you could do worse than seek the Reverend Dr. Ken Hovind. If you are banned from YouTube, Dr. Ken Hovind is God's central defender. If you look at God's defense line, you will notice that Dr. Hovind is taller and stronger than the others. In fact, one head and 2 shoulders higher. They say that great scientists stand on the shoulders of giants. They also say that on every shoulder stands another giant, and so the pyramid grows forever higher. Well, folks, don't worry your little heads. Dr. Ken Hovind stands on top of that pyramid now, and nobody stands on his shoulders, except occasionally his son Eric. That's right, scientists. This pyramid has reached its destination. Mind who you step on the way down. If you hold your goats, boys and girls, you will be able to personally inspect the aforementioned pyramid in a later chapter, but until then, if it's all the same to you, just take my word. Oh, besides God's central defender, Dr. Hovin holds the delicate position of God's joker, where he makes sure God doesn't take offense unnecessarily on the one hand, and on the other hand, makes sure God's creations don't take their creator too seriously. As a result, they can defend him better. If you want to be part of God's Joker army, please turn to the next chapter, but for now, please avoid joking until you're qualified so to do. Pun? That's a very good question, funnily enough. Jokes are, as you will find in the next chapter, quite ambiguous. What for one person may be funny can be quite offensive and dangerous to another. One might look at little Eric Hoven, for example, and fall about laughing, while another might jump out of the nearest window. Of course, God usually catches those who jump out of windows, but if you see Eric and your disbelief is not sufficiently suspended, well, God is otherwise engaged. Now, what part of otherwise engaged don't you understand? Yes, you're welcome to try, but between me and the angels, don't expect an answer too soon. God is busy, and let's face it, you are what is called low priority. Oh no, don't feel bad. You're in good company and the safety in numbers. Now, back to our story, to the point in which SDB just declared that if it wasn't for him, the universe wouldn't exist. Now don't be silly, I said. How stupid and ego-driven can a human being, even one who works for Satan, be? If you come second in the egg race, the universe wouldn't exist? That's stupid. You think the universe revolves around you? Kind of. Said SDB. Well, let me tell you this. I was fighting for God's one and only universe now, which I'm sure my friend was taking note of. If your sperm came second in the egg race, the universe would still exist. The only one who wouldn't exist is you. That told him. To say that I was proud of myself would be an understatement. Once again, I snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. I looked up, expecting to see God extending his hand with his thumb pointing upward, but of course he was obscured by a flying cow. Still, there was absolutely no doubt in my mind that God followed my battle with Satan's delivery boys every twist and turn, and obviously liked it. My famous humility was again challenged. It's so hard to be humble after such a divine endorsement. I was about to gather my inner selves for a victory ceremony, but then something strange happened. My second best friend, Satan's delivery boy, looked slightly different. He had a distant look on his face.
I'm sorry,
He said in a slightly higher pitched voice.
I didn't quite catch that. I don't exist. It's my brother. You're talking to the one who won the Empress.
Oh, before we disperse, let me reassure those of you who care that no sperms were consumed in the preparation of this chapter, right? Satan's delivery boy, it seemed, has lost the egg race and, as a result, lost his job. That made me feel rather sad. Satan had only one delivery boy. No one could take his place. I looked around me with horror. The implications seemed to be too terrible to contemplate. If Satan lost his delivery boy, who would spread his word? Who would do the actual mental torture? Who would ridicule God and expose his contradictions? Who would deliver junk food that's bad for you? Who would infect poor unsuspecting believers with skepticism? And, worst of all, who am I going to defeat every afternoon? I was having a horrible picture of me sitting on a park bench and Satan's delivery boy not there to steal the breadcrumbs I was about to give the ducks. Sometimes you don't appreciate a friend until he's gone. Friends are there to remind you that there are others in the universe. They feel your pain and make it go away. Please see chapter 10, You've Got a Friend, for details. Now, I was stuck with no friend on earth. There is one in the sky, but he's useless. I was also stuck with quite a lot of pain, which SDB was supposed to take on before he bugged off. Suddenly, the 420 billion extra galaxies seemed like hardly enough. Maybe in one of them SDB won the race but then he said in a more familiar voice, But don't worry, GBF, if you want to talk to me, you can find me in a parallel universe near you.